This might sound crazy now because in hindsight they're so completely different, but I remember a time when Kesha and Lady Gaga were heavily pitted against each other by the media. They both represent a fun and very specific era of 2000s and early 2010s pop. I personally like to call it the sleazy era of pop music, stylized with a dollar sign of course. Characterized by a time in pop where artists like Kesha were often very camp in image, may have said some outlandish things in their lyrics, and sonically took a lot of inspiration from 80s pop, high energy, and Europop. Auto-tune vocals were also fairly common. I would also categorize a song such as Like a G6 as a part of this very specific type of pop music. You could also say that this music was the obvious precursor to the rise of hyperpop. It's a style of pop that has begun to make a bit of a resurgence in the early 2020s through a bit of a more legitimate lens, whereas at first it was heavily scrutinized and dismissed by critics. Kesha is unfortunately an artist that critics didn't take into much consideration until she faced public complications. While her reinvention and perseverance in songs like Prayin' are worth taking notice of, so is her party music. In the last 10 years, with the rise of poptimism, only has party pop been given far more grace. A well-done sentimental ballad is great, but so is well-done fun music. There is a genuine art and skill that comes with making fun, nonsensical, and vapid party music that is good. And not everyone can do it. Let's start with where we first met Kesha. TikTok. TikTok the app may or may not be temporary, but Kesha's TikTok will always remain. The song went #1 for 9 weeks and is one of the most successful singles of the 2020s. The song is ridiculous in the best way possible. Kesha talks about brushing her teeth with a bottle of Jack Daniels and turning down guys unless they look like Mick Jagger. The song painted her as the ultimate party girl. The bridge is absolute perfection, and the synths drive the song. It's a hook for the ages. She commands the audience don't stop, make it pop, and that they did. This is Kesha's signature hit, and would come to define her sing-rap style. But there's plenty of gold to be found on Kesha's debut album, Animal. Blah 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 is one of my favorites. It is absolutely obnoxious. It's one of those songs that are supposed to be supremely irritating, but I think just works. The standout lyric being, "Zip your lip like a padlock." It's like, who comes up with that besides Kesha? Your Love Is My Drug is an all-time Kesha song, just by the book's pop perfection. Backstabber is a fusion of Kesha's electro-pop and country music. Take It Off has a clean usage of the Arabian riff. Steven is an album highlight. It's a pretty straightforward ballad. The ridiculousness doesn't stop there though. Her follow-up EP Cannibal also housed some of her best work. We Are Who We Are was an anthem. Blow sounds very militaristic, but my actual favorite from this record is See You Next Tuesday. It's a quaint electro-pop ballad where Kesha talks about this person who's trying to get with her while knowing he's already lying and has a girlfriend. The melodies on this one are just really nice. Warrior was the turning point for Kesha, where it seemed like she tried to mature and simultaneously turn down the party girl. It's much more rock influenced. Die Young is classic Kesha, but incorporates more than just synth overload, and also strips back the signature autotune. It feels like every single moment of this song was meant to sing along to. The second single and the third single from the album, Come On and Crazy Kids, are what I would consider dark horse Kesha songs. Not wildly successful, but still fairly popular. But I think they have some of her best and most euphoric choruses. This album is split between Kesha the party girl and Kesha the rock singer-songwriter. According to Kesha, there was a fight for creative control over this record, and it certainly shows in the end result. It's very split. After this album, Kesha would be involved in a legal fight against Dr. Luke, who she accused of sexual abuse. She came back with Rainbow in 2017, going in a completely stripped down direction. 2023's Gag Order was Kesha going in a completely unforeseen direction in art pop, easily her most experimental work. It's an album that feels like a therapy session, but really dives into so many different sonic styles. Eat the Acid, Fine Line, Peace and Quiet are definite highlights, and I think some of her best as well. In 2024, Kesha returned with Joyride, a song that has echoes of classic Kesha and takes inspiration from polka music. Kesha wasn't taken seriously in the 2000s, but a genre that shared a lot in common with Kesha would come to be a critic's favorite in the late 2010s, and that genre is of course hyperpop. And while Kesha isn't hyperpop, I feel like in many ways a good amount of her earlier work can be classified as proto-hyperpop. Pitchfork is quoted saying, "Her brand of robo-shamelessness has been embraced especially by hyperpop, which is bathed in 2010s nostalgia. You can hear her in the airhead pop of Slater and Aisha Erotica, both of whom infuse their bubblegum tracks with tawdry flair. PC music leader A.G. Cook has remixed Steven. In 2024, we had the all-encompassing Brat album and movement by Charlie XCX. Kesha was featured on the remix album. The album largely took inspiration from 2000s electropop, delivered through an ultra-modern and fresh lens, with many people drawing parallels with songs like Piece of Me by Britney Spears from the Blackout era to some of the work on Brat. The album also takes a huge amount of influence from the UK rave scene in the 2000s. I was shocked that Kesha wasn't brought up much though. It's hard to imagine an album like Brat existing, especially to the extent that it did, without Kesha laying the groundwork of being an outlandish, trashy, and at times heartbroken party girl. Kesha has had a lot of fun and even daring music worth appreciation. And I do mean genuinely fun, not just the tragedy that she's been through. She is one of the OG party girls for this era.